But what I really figured out about myself in that first manufacturing job was I had a passion for technology implementation, i.e.,
Mm.
a lot of manufacturers, until they're forced to upgrade, they run the same equipment and they'll run it into the ground, right?
Yes, really
And
old and antiquated.
yes, and sometimes there's nothing wrong with that. One of the last companies I worked for, the oldest piece of equipment that I saw running production materials today was a carding machine that was built in 1942. It was built during World War II, and it's still operating in North Augusta today, producing high quality materials. Okay,
Mm.
That's crazy.
but the process,
1940.
I know, the process has changed so much from even 10 years ago to today that the implementation of technology sometimes makes or breaks projects, right? The technology itself has been proven to work, but if you don't implement it in your environment in a proper way with a process, sometimes you create more chaos
Ding,
than
ding,
you
ding,
solve
ding.
problems, right? So I very quickly realized I had a passion for technology implementation, specifically in a manufacturing environment, because I saw how quickly upgrading one plastic injection molding machine with a modern PLC changed not only how I could process that machine, but changed how the operator could work on that machine throughout the day, how much information we could give back to him and decrease that feedback loop so that he's making adjustments before he even needs to call for help, right? So I figured that out while I was there. I also figured out that I had a passion for helping and teaching others. As a process engineer, you're expected to help others on your team, whether that's someone on the floor or a manager, right? And I always took a lot of joy from that part of my job, was training people to do and complete tasks that they maybe thought they weren't capable of or that they didn't understand at the beginning of the day. And at the end of the week, they're chipping through it with no problem, like it's second nature. To me, I take a lot of personal pride and joy out of that. So I've always tried to get involved with training programs or involved in a mentor program in any of the companies that I've been with. And then the ultimate thing that has really pulled me towards manufacturing, and I apologize to any financial people in advance, but in engineering, we always called the financial people bean counters,
That's
right?
right.
I didn't want to be a bean counter. I had in my mind, like, I wanted to add value to the world. How do you add value? You transform something from state A to state B, and everybody agrees that this has more value. That's all that manufacturing is, right? We take raw materials, we do some type of widget making process, and we sell it for more than we bought the raw material, right?
Mhm.
That's a transformation of materials and things to higher states that fits right into what this company does.
Welcome to the Analytical Rewired, the best place to discuss various obstacles, limitations, challenges, behaviors, and how to overcome them in business. We deep dive into the complexities of people, processes, data, and technology, PPDT, adopting our focus to be either technical or creative expressions, and how to balance the two. The Analytical Rewired is brought to you by the MJW Group, a performance improvement and leadership development boutique management consulting firm that helps companies save time and money.
I'm surprised you don't send the like thing, because on all the Google videos, they have all the managers like laughing with the thing, you know?
Oh, Brittany's gonna have to cut that out. We're
I was
recording.
like, oh my gosh. He's the only person that's ever done that. Okay.
Jennifer, your face. He said,
Take two. All right. Welcome to the Analytical Rewired. I am your host, Jennifer White, CEO of the MJW Group. And I have my co-host here with me, Sarah Ashley. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. I'm glad it's the end of the day and I can start to unwind.
And it's almost the weekend.
That's right. So we're glad to have another behind the scenes episode here at the MJW Group. Today we have no other but Logan Wray. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here with you guys.
Awesome. So Logan, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got here to work at the MJW Group?
Okay. So I'm going to start with all the hats I've worn throughout my career and then the industries that I've worked in. So I've done project engineering, process engineering manager, business analyst, and now with you guys, a program manager of operational excellence. So it's a lot of different hats, which has allowed me to see a lot of different processes within different businesses, within different industries, and really allow me to have a wide palette of tools to pull from depending on the project that I'm working on. So right off the bat, I was in the automotive industry, which is a tougher industry to be in from a manufacturing perspective. You know, tier one suppliers really hold their vendors to the coals. And it was interesting to see that process. I've worked in the nuclear industry, which really exposed me to very high quality levels. And after you've worked in the nuclear industry, you have an expectation level for quality, and you're not going to find it unless you're in the aerospace industry as well, is what I have kind of found out, right? I worked in the optical fiber telecommunication industry with Marcus, which I'm going to circle back to. That's kind of how I'm here today. I've done rubber and plastic injection molding for power utility industry. And I've also done technical nonwoven. So the materials that filter the air in all of our plants around the world, the material that goes into the back of your trunk in your vehicle, that is not a carpeted, that is not a woven material, that is a technical nonwoven. And even something like that has to have a certain level of engineering that goes into it, right? Fire retardant. You don't want all that stuff to catch fire very easily inside your vehicle. So now I find myself in the consulting space, which is where I think my previous experience lends me to be the most successful, right? Since I've seen 4 or 5 different manufacturing industries across multiple disciplines producing different products with different technologies, now I feel I'm in a position to consult other companies on a lot of the hurdles that I've seen other people deal with, right? So since I've joined the MJW Group, and a lot of times throughout my career, I feel like as an engineer or a process guy or a program manager, my job is to turn chaos into order, right? People give you, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I need to get a result. And then you've got to take those pieces and figure out how you're going to get the result. And that could be a combination of team skills, interpersonal, working with others, or a combination of technical skill sets, right? Data analysis, OEE, all that fun stuff. So that's the professional version of myself. The personal version of me is I'm an outdoorsy type of guy, probably because I spent so much time in factories over the last decade. I want some sun on my skin, and I want to dig my hands into the dirt sometimes. So when I'm not involved in a manufacturing activity, I'm typically, you can find me on a golf course, or you can find me working in my garden. I grow bonsais. I've been doing that for almost a decade now. And recently I moved into a new home that had all new fresh garden beds to completely be redone. So I did those last year. And then next year, my plan is to put in 6 raised beds and grow all of my own fruits and vegetables in the back.
Fun. My brother-in-law does that, and he loves it. It's so funny. He'll go missing for a little bit and come back. He's got all these chili peppers, and he's like, "What are we gonna make for dinner tonight?"
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Like I eat a lot of lettuce. I eat a lot of salad. So I'm like, why not grow my own leaf lettuce? You know what I mean? I eat a lot of strawberries. I have the sun down here in South Carolina to grow them. So, and I have the space back there. So that's what I'll be filling some free time with.
Nice. Nice. Okay. So let's get into all of your hats that you spoke about, which I did not know you were a business analyst before.
That's what I am with the Smithfield project.
That's right.
Yeah.
You are. But, you know, you still probably wearing a multiple hat there too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's get into those multiple hats in the different industries. So Let me ask you a wild card question. Which industry have you enjoyed being a part of the most?
That is a curveball.
I feel like I see you filtering through all your cards of different industries.
I would probably have to go all the way back to the very beginning and where I got my first engineering job in, say, the nuclear industry because of,
okay.
yeah, because it exposed me to, I had the interpretation that since it was my first real engineering job, that this is how most companies went about doing quality level and quality control. Turns out everybody else doesn't have the nuclear regulatory committee breathing down their back, watching everything that they're doing, right? So, and I'm very passionate. And the reason why I like to grow my own stuff and be involved with nature is I'm passionate about nature and our environment, right? We view ourselves as separate from, but that's not always the case. We're part of the environment that we find ourselves in. And nuclear energy,
we are one.
There you go. Nuclear energy is one of those solutions that's out there that could help us get away from fossil fuels and all the issues that we currently have with the planet. I still think, though, I still have my reservations about nuclear power because we still don't have a solution of where we're going to store nuclear waste, right? But that industry and the technology that was used, because it's sci-fi, right? You couldn't even ask a normal person on the street to explain how a nuclear reactor creates energy, right? And that's all that I learned about for 2 years was the inner workings of like this sci-fi power plant, right? So I did really enjoy it. They offered a lot of training as well for the employees while I was there. So I was able to learn a lot. But ultimately, I like to work with my hands. I like to get my hands involved in projects. I like to get in the dirt when I do the gardening, right? And being in that role in the nuclear industry, I was sitting in a cube creating reports all day. And I quickly realized the 1.5 to 2 years into it that I would be happier if I had a job that was more hands-on. And that's when I made the jump to manufacturing. And that's kind of where I found my passions, right? So I'm going to jump to why I'm interested in my line of work. So when I got out of college, I graduated in 2011, which was kind of the tail end of that recession, right? And when I went into college, it was pitched that 98% of people that get an engineering degree from Penn State have a job in 3 months. That wasn't the case when I got out. Sure, a lot of people that graduated around that time were like it was a struggle, right? I had my degree, but I didn't have any experience in the engineering world. And I applied to over 500 places. And it was a struggle in the beginning. And then all of a sudden, I got 3 offers in 1 week. And it was like, now you have to make this tough choice, right? And at that time, I chose Westinghouse to be in the nuclear industry. And I realized that the work environment wasn't ideal for me, right? And I went out and I got a job in a manufacturing environment, a very small automotive plastic molder. And that exposed me to quality, delivery, research and development, PPAPs, the whole 9 yards. We were a $8 million company with 35 people on the staff. So you either did multiple roles a day, right? Or there really wasn't a spot for you. So in that role as a process engineer there, I got to learn research and development. I got to learn quality. I got to learn customer facing relationships, ISO audits. And from there, it kind of bounced off of that for my next adventure. So, but what I really figured out about myself in that first manufacturing job was I had a passion for technology implementation, i.e., a lot of manufacturers, until they're forced to upgrade, they run the same equipment and they'll run it into the ground, right?
Yes, really old and antiquated.
Yes. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with that. One of the last companies I worked for, the oldest piece of equipment that I saw running production materials today was a carding machine that was built in 1942. It was built during World War II, and it's still operating in North Augusta today, producing high quality materials. Okay.
That's crazy.
But the process, I know, the process has changed so much from even 10 years ago to today that the implementation of technology sometimes makes or breaks projects, right? The technology itself has been proven to work, but if you don't implement it in your environment in a proper way with a process, sometimes you create more chaos than you solve problems, right? So I very quickly realized that I had a passion for technology implementation, specifically in a manufacturing environment, because I saw how quickly upgrading one plastic injection molding machine with a modern PLC changed not only how I could process that machine, but changed how the operator could work on that machine throughout the day, how much information we could give back to him and decrease that feedback loop so that he's making adjustments before he even needs to call for help, right? So I figured that out while I was there. I also figured out that I had a passion for helping and teaching others. As a process engineer, you're expected to help others on your team, whether that's someone on the floor or a manager, right? And I always took a lot of joy from that part of my job, was training people to do and complete tasks that they maybe thought they weren't capable of or that they didn't understand at the beginning of the day. And at the end of the week, they're chipping through it with no problem, like it's second nature. To me, I take a lot of personal pride and joy out of that. So I've always tried to get involved with training programs or involved in a mentor program in any of the companies that I've been with. And then the ultimate thing that has really pulled me towards manufacturing, and I apologize to any financial people in advance, but in engineering, we always called the financial people bean counters.
That's right.
I didn't want to be a bean counter. I had in my mind, like, I wanted to add value to the world. How do you add value? You transform something from state A to state B, and everybody agrees that this has more value. That's all that manufacturing is, right? We take raw materials, we do some type of widget making process, and we sell it for more than we bought the raw material, right? That's a transformation of materials and things to higher states that fits right into what this company does. And so I'll circle back to
I was going to say, let's circle back. How'd you get here?
Yeah, so I'll circle back to how I ended up here. So when I worked for a company in the optical fiber telecommunication industry, I worked in an office right beside Marcus, and we built a good relationship, a good working relationship while we were there. What we very quickly figured out was that we shared similar big views on the world, things like law of attraction, universal law of constraints, the power of the mind and of thoughts. And these weren't typical conversations that I got to have with other process engineers, right? This was when I got to have this conversation with Marcus, and it both clicked for us that this guy doesn't think I'm crazy for talking about this stuff. There was a friendship born, right? We don't run into a lot of people in the technical world that think about the things like this, right? So we're very different in the way that we approach things as engineers, because we do have that technical acumen and the way to approach things from a business analyst. But I'm also trying to consider the holistic approach in things that I do as well. And when I separated from that company, Marcus asked me back in 2016 if he started, there was kind of like the inner workings and the gears turning between him and Jennifer, starting their own corporation or group. And he asked me at the time if I would come work with and for him if he started a company. And of course, at the time I said, yes, I would love to. But that was just a pipe dream at that day and at that time, because there was no MJW Group at that time. Marcus and I stayed in contact for half a decade, for 5 years, all the way until 2021. Which is crazy to think about. There are people that I thought were way more important in my life back in 2016 that I don't talk to anymore, and I still talk to them. You know what I mean?
Agreed. I also think it's kind of funny, though, that, you know, a lot of times we'll ask or we'll talk about, at least on here, how the MJW Group or Marcus or Jennifer met our guest that's on the podcast. And a lot of times it's LinkedIn. I think this is one of our first times that this is an in-person meeting. And that you guys just kind of kept Dean coming back.
Yeah, well, like I said, it was that the conversations about the law of attraction and universal constraints, and in not just taking what was in the textbooks from engineering, but applying some real world heavy logic to the way the world works. And I had never had that connection with another engineer in my entire life. So that right there was an immediate, there's something to this guy, right? And then Marcus's ability. So Marcus was a contractor for that company, and he was still considered the leader of the engineering team. So Marcus showed back then a very high level of leadership skill. And throughout my manufacturing career, that has been my biggest issue, right? Is I've had a lot of plant managers and production managers that they're not people, they're not associated with the other things that make a job a good place to show up and go to every day, right?
Yeah, we don't like people. Most engineers don't like people. I'm just gonna be honest. We don't.
Right. Most engineers, and I've been told.
Well, all right. No,
we don't.
It's true. Well, most engineers are introverts. If you think about it, they're like nerdy people. They're introverts, right? So I've had a lot of people tell me they were surprised to find out I was an engineer if they met me outside of a professional setting, because I do communicate a little bit differently.
Yeah,
I do have some different views about the world that if you're this hardcore engineer, you're like, no, that doesn't make sense. I can't apply math to it. And it holds no spot in their brain. Marcus was one of the few people that I met that wasn't the case. And then Marcus's ability to navigate troubled waters was a step above what I saw anybody else in a professional environment do. And so I was immediately attracted to him saying, if I started a company, would you come work for me? Because I've had this view since I got into manufacturing that either your boss, it's not really the company you work for that's going to make or break you. It's that boss you report to, right? I've had companies that were great, but bosses that were terrible, and I could not stand working there. And I've had the opposite, where the companies might have been garbage, but I had a great working relationship with my boss, and my day was good, right? So for me to have an opportunity to learn from Marcus, I jumped right on it, right? And then the project that they pitched me to go on was kind of like a springboard of what I just explained I did for 10 years, right? I've worked in multiple industries. I've processed multiple products across multiple technologies. And they've got a massive multi-billion-dollar client that wants to go on this 3 to 5 year journey of installing OEE data acquisition technology. And I've basically been groomed for 10 years to lead a project like that. So
wow.
Yeah, that's how I look at it.
Would you look at that?
Well, I mean, honestly, like it fell into my lap at the time when I was a process engineering manager, and there really wasn't another level up for me to go in my career, right? This was the next project of this level at a corporate level was the next thing for me to tackle. So, and I try and share this with the team, and I'll share it here. I try and approach every day with the MJW Group with an attitude of gratitude. I'm working in my own home office. I painted the walls back there. I had someone ask me in my former job, I showed them how I was setting up my office, and they were kind of puzzled as to why I painted the walls, not just one flat color. And I said, I want to have fun. It's my job. It's my office, right? So many people are used to, well, it's work, so it can't be fun. And I don't believe in that. I think we talked about that earlier, Sarah, on a different call. Yeah. Like, I'm here to work, I'm here to show up, but we got to have some fun along the way as well.
I agree. Because, I stay making a joke here and there.
Yes, and orange means creativity. So you picked a fine, mighty color there, sir.
Thank you. Funny
and
how
I'm coming to you guys live from my floor. I'm sitting in front of my couch. So
it's funny how I didn't go out and pick these colors. These were the leftover colors from when I painted my house. And I was like, well, I got to use the paint in here anyway. Let's get creative in it. And then you're like, hey, this is the colors of my company. I'm like, well, this just works, guys. This just works.
All right. We got to wrap up here a little bit, Logan. So how would you say, because you're a couple of months in now with the team, how has it changed you? Like, how have you been transformed? Because when you were talking about transforming raw materials into these, finished goods, you were kind of starting to sound like Optimus Prime. And I was like, I feel like he's going to give us a transformational speech. That's what Optimus does all the time.
That is what he does.
He does. That's his job.
I would say the 4 months with the MJW Group is the equivalent of 2 years of growth with any other company. With the way that they challenge you
10 out of 10, yeah,
to be uncomfortable, right? The way they challenge you to do things that you might not understand why at the time it even makes sense for what you're doing. I've never been at a company where the required reading was The Science of Getting Rich, right? But these are all things that force you to grow in ways that other companies don't consider, right? So personal and professional growth. Professionally, as part of being on this team, I've had to do a project management certification. And that has been a really good redusting off of those project management skills for me, right? As a project engineer or process engineer, I've been doing all of these things for years on projects, but not had a project manager title, right? So for me, it's been really good to go back and get that dusting off and kind of rehone some of that syntax and lingo to move forward with bigger projects within the MJW Group. And then the ability to work on this project in the C-suite and realize that these guys are no different than everybody I've ever worked with. It's like, let's go. If that makes, you know what I mean? If that makes sense. These guys are no different than everybody else. They're trying to solve problems like me and you. So it has been an incredible amount of growth, and I cannot wait to see where we end up in 1 year.
It's funny. I had a lot of deja vu while you were just talking, and I haven't had that in a while. And I was like, have I been here?
Yes, you've been here.
I was like, I've been here, I think.
Yes. Well, that's awesome to hear, Logan. We definitely are grateful to have you as part of the team. And I'll say, just like I mentioned to Sarah the other day, like I've seen the transformation in you as well, from when you first came on board. And plus I've known Logan for a couple of years now.
Right.
But yeah, definitely see the transformation. I'm excited to continue to see it. And like he said, like see where the team goes next year and our growth for next year for the team as well. So thank you for being a part of the episode today.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah. So everyone, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Analytical Rewired. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.